Welcome to this webinar, ServiceNow for the Public Sector, a GDS masterclass. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. This session is being recorded. Your camera and microphone are automatically muted. However, you can participate in the conversation by using the chat, which you can find at the bottom of your screen. There will be a Q&A at the end of the session. Please use the Q&A tab or the chat to ask your questions. You can also click raise hand if you wish to speak, but please be aware that by doing so, you consent to be part of the recording. If you are facing any technical difficulties, please feel free to let me know in the chat. Let's get started. Today's citizens have high expectations for using public services online. Familiar with the sleek, modern experiences of the private sector, they become frustrated when public sector services fail to live up to those standards. Building effective, accessible, and engaging experience is no small task, especially with the public sector. Modern demands combined with legal and moral responsibilities make it increasingly difficult for public services to keep up and provide consistent, intuitive, and efficient services. But how can you deliver a streamlined, omnichannel experience expected and aligned with government digital service or GDS standards? Well, our speakers today will explore all this and more. I will now hand it over to our speakers so they can introduce themselves and start the presentation. Jonathan and Stephen, over to you.
Great, thank you. Afternoon all. So my name is Jonathan Els, Head of Solutions here at Flyform. I've spent the last decade just over across public sector and private sector, working for the likes of Innovate UK, looking at public sector investment and funding and digitizing their funding assessment process. And then in the private sector, from digital service delivery and more of a broadcast solutions perspective, and in the service management space. And with me is my colleague, Steve Williams, who will introduce himself.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm a ServiceNow certified technical architect and also the lead architect for product at Flyform, whom I've been with for just over 5 years. Before joining Flyform, I worked in digital service delivery at a major UK government department.
Good stuff. So we're going to cover off a few different topics in today's webinar, but the first thing that I'd like to do is take a look at what does today look like in the context of citizen experience, service delivery from a public sector space, and government design components that we can look to improve. How do you go about modernizing service delivery in the public space, and then looking at our GDS toolkit that we've created. So first things first, improving the use of digital data technology across the public sector has been a long-term goal of the government. I think we know that. The UK public sector organisations are expected to entirely digitise their essential services in order to keep pace with things like citizen demand, but there are challenges preventing them from taking strategic steps towards full digital transformation. And to kind of bring out the more common challenges that we see, things like skills, there is significant growing demand for data literate employees across the public sector. Yet many organizations are struggling to fill these roles. I think about 49% of public sector organizations and 45% of local gov and not-for-profit organizations believe that the organizations that they work in have the data skills required to succeed in the future. This is impacted by the fact that finding and retaining skilled IT professionals and digital experts in the public sector can be really challenging, because often we see private sector with more competitive salaries, and then once you have those skills in-house in the public sector, that challenge doesn't disappear. It's not over. Public sector organizations can still face challenges with retaining and retraining the skill sets required within their organizations. Next challenge we see is around a convoluted infrastructure. And whilst skills might be one aspect, a convoluted infrastructure within public sector organizations increases costs, complexity of not just standing up citizen-facing services, but delivering them as well. And on top of that, when we talk about replacing legacy systems that are often in place and the infrastructure associated to it, it's typically quite expensive, integrating with legacy systems with new technology also creates further challenges. And when you add to this, a low level of interoperability between public sector organizations, they're all using different systems. You've got different agencies and government departments using different technologies, different systems, different processes, ways of working. Ensuring systems can communicate and share data effectively is another technical and logistical challenge. And these sort of practical problems are multifaceted. So we face complex challenges with, convoluted workflows, the need for extensive automation, and the overhead of maintaining, different siloed tool sets. And although I've spoken about infrastructure and technology, it's important to equally focus on data. That's a recurring challenge that we see from a public sector space. From decades of data collection without sufficient management and oversight creates challenges when it comes to things like migration activities or adoption of analytics or MI tools, or eventually moving towards AI and machine learning capabilities. And the added responsibilities of managing reservoirs of sensitive data, we're talking about more awareness and advice is required in the public space. And the third key challenge that I want to bring out is around varied experiences for users and citizens. Fundamentally, mixed technologies across public sector organizations create inconsistencies between public services and citizen experience. And when different public service organizations and entities kind of have mixed-matched interfaces, it creates confusion and distrust among citizens. And having completely different experience, checking things like your council tax or medical records or children's education, going through a passport renewal, using various different government services, each with its own standards of compliance and user interfaces, is not really an ideal recipe for citizens. So while digital services can improve citizen engagement, they can also lead to a sense of disconnection, lack of personal touch. So striking that balance, or the right balance, is really, really tricky. And whilst I've kind of touched on 3 key areas, there are specific areas where we see challenges more broadly speaking, with a low level, I think approximately 40% of public sector organizations saying that they have an up-to-date digital strategy or roadmap in place. And of that, 45% say that they need to revisit a roadmap if they think there is one in place anyway. And so this kind of brings me on to why change, why they need to do something different, why they need to be better as part of a natural progression. We've talked about the current state, but now what do we do? So to overcome these challenges, the public sector should adopt a holistic approach to digital transformation, including careful planning, strong leadership, collaboration with private sector and technology partners, and focus on improving the citizen experience. And beyond that, continuous monitoring and adaptation are key to staying ahead in what we all know is an ever-evolving landscape of technology and public service delivery. And so what I want to look at is social impact, and to emphasize the critical importance of efficient and modern public services for individuals and organizations. The services that are being delivered impact our daily lives, and we've got far-reaching implications both socially and economically. So efficient public services have the power to transform lives and empower organizations. So when we talk about efficiency, we're not just referring to speed, but also the seamless experience they provide. And then moving on from that, we're looking at cost efficiency. We all know that better use of public funds is more scrutinized than ever. And efficiency from an operational perspective has a significant impact on infrastructure and service delivery costs. When services are efficient, they require fewer resources, they can serve more people, and that results in ultimate cost savings. And in today's world, we need more than just a pretty front end. As well as a modern user experience, we require a complete end-to-end solution, which things like standardized data models, the ability to automate, integrate, and orchestrate. And whilst initial investment in these types of platforms and solutions we understand those to be quite high, but transforming infrastructure and systems, the ROI from modern solutions and end-to-end solutions does far outweigh the initial investment required. And looking at costs, moving on into, as I said, adoption and experience, one of the key pillars for efficient public services is consistency. When public services offer a consistent and user-friendly experience, individuals, organizations become more familiar with them, they're more likely to adopt and use these services regularly. And this familiarity and adoption are vital for a thriving digital society. And to deliver public services consistently, it's only right that we talk about the UK's GDS standards, the Government Digital Service, because ultimately this sets the bar for delivering government services in this digital age that we're in. And these standards encompass things like security, quality, consistency, as I've said, in the way that public services are delivered. There's too many public sector organizations falling behind that are not meeting standards that should be there and should be met in today's world. And without adhering to these standards, we're more likely to encounter operational issues that drive up costs. So to address this, investment, as I said, in that full end-to-end solution, not just something that's visually appealing from a citizen perspective, but something operationally that's best in class is equally important. And with the world, as we know, becoming more digital, we've got Gen AI being the hot topic at the moment. Public sector organizations cannot be left behind. Technical debt, on-premise systems, they're just not ecological. They won't scale as the population increases in the UK and will become increasingly more and more a security risk. So they won't support the UK's government strategy to have a better understanding and control of data. So to kind of summarize all of the wide change, we're talking about ensuring consistency, security, and high quality experiences for every citizen consuming public service, not just for now or tomorrow, but ultimately for the decades to come. And so we've talked about current expectations, current experience, things we can do to change. Now I want to spend a little bit of time just walking through how we could look to change and to be more strategic with how you start to digitize, be more efficient, drive consistency. So it's important that public sector organizations embrace a digital strategy. In this rapidly evolving world, as we know, adopting a digital approach isn't just an option, it's a necessity. So what I want to do is dive into what I think are 7 priority areas that underpin the need for this transformation. And first and foremost, adopting a digital strategy supports enhanced efficiency and cost savings. You can review and streamline existing processes to understand where you could potentially remove tasks in a process or steps, where you can automate them, reduce the amount of paperwork, and lead to a more cost-effective public sector service. It means that taxpayers' money is spent more efficiently, and we all want that, I'm sure. And moving on from there, we're talking about improved service delivery, enabling public sector organizations to understand the services they provide in more detail. How are they consumed? And therefore better understand how to be faster, more accessible to the citizens that are consuming those services. So it's about meeting those citizens where they are and ensuring that their needs are met promptly and, as I said, efficiently. And when we look at digital in today's world, we need to have a strategy around data security and compliance. As I said, these are non-negotiables. So a digital strategy ensures that sensitive citizen data is identified, it's secure, and that the organization adheres to compliance standards to build trust and credibility with the public. We all know from the events of COVID, the world has changed in terms of working practices. So the ability to facilitate remote work is more important than ever. Digital strategies enable public sector employees to work remotely, ensuring continuity during crises that we've witnessed, improving the work-life balance, offering secure remote working can also widen the talent pool when we're looking at skills, shortage of skills, attracting talent and digital talent into the public sector. And secure remote working and flexibility can often offset salary expectations, for example, in comparison to public sector. And then when we talk about data and data-driven decision-making, a digital strategy will equip organizations with the tools to not only collect the right level of data, but analyze it in the right way so that you can use it effectively to make those decisions more efficiently and more impactfully. It's about making decisions based on facts, not emotions or assumptions. And this includes things like, data governance strategy to ensure there's clear ownership, there's clear policy in place for, as I said, managing the ever-increasing sensitive data held and processed within public sector organizations. Because public sector organizations exist to serve citizens, you need a digital strategy to bring in that citizen engagement, ensuring that services are accessible, ensuring that you've got the right user-friendly interfaces, it's transparent, you're engaging citizens within your decision-making processes, again, fostering trust and collaboration. And that leads us into why we've built Flyform's GDS toolkit. It provides an efficient springboard, if you will, to help organizations leverage the end-to-end power of ServiceNow as a platform of action and use GDS components natively to drive consistency, underpinned by leading workflow automation platform. I like to think of it as a Ferrari for car lovers in the audience, with perhaps ServiceNow being the engine and the chassis and the power, and the GDS toolkit acting as the bodywork, the recognizable shape, the red paint.
Let's see about bridging the gap between accessibility and experience. And when we talk about the citizen experience and creating intuitive, consumable services, we have to consider accessibility. We have a significant number of people in the UK with disabilities, and yet only 3% of the general internet is truly accessible, and likely a factor in why only 40% of local council websites, or 40% of local council websites fail accessibility tests. The most common, 5 common issues for failing are typically missing the kind of skip to content navigation option, which is an issue for those who need screen readers using tabbed browsing. We have failure to identify form fields, which creates issues with autocomplete and pre-fill of saved information. Using the same link text for different destinations can be confusing. Tests with insufficient contrast, which affects those with vision impairments such as color blindness or low and blurred vision, and not marking navigation as lists, so failing to write links semantically. For example, using the OR tags can force users to have to step through hundreds of links one at a time.
Yeah, so 14 points really that the GDS has established. These principles govern the creation and delivery of digital government services. And these principles recognize and prioritize user needs, advocate for holistic solutions, emphasize inclusivity and efficiency. They encourage a multidisciplinary team approach, agile methodologies, ongoing service improvement. It also brings in security and privacy protection, as well as data-driven performance monitoring. These are all vital aspects that brought into these 14 points. The choice of technology, open source practices play a significant role in service sustainability and cost effectiveness. Open standards, shared components, and reliability are key considerations incorporated within these 14 points. These principles collectively promote user-centric, efficient, high-quality digital services for the UK government. And technologies which put experience at the heart and have end-to-end workflow and automation capabilities are available, for example, ServiceNow, to drive forward greater experience, efficient service delivery, and enhance accessibility compliance posture at the same time. Back to you, Steve.
Okay, thanks, John. So with the GDS toolkit, we leverage the Now platform from ServiceNow to reduce the complexity involved in the design, launch, and operation of a service. So we have in the Now platform a readily enabled cloud service that non-developers, non-technical department staff, using no-code tools such as the catalog builder, can design the service, write the questions, choose which components from the Gov.uk design system should be used, and immediately publish the service to your users. Now, this gives us a rapidly deployed, quality, citizen-facing service that looks and feels familiar and is easy to use by all, because we've been able to bring in those inclusive design patterns from the design system as an accessible interface to the catalog item that you've created. So there's no need to think about what infrastructure is needed or how that's going to be managed. If we compare the steps in the Gov.uk service manual for choosing technology, we're looking at things like managing software dependencies, maintaining code and version control, building the front end and implementing HTTPS, and much more besides that's largely already taken care of by deploying a service with the GDS toolkit on ServiceNow. So immediately we can leverage the powerful workflow automation capabilities of the Now platform to ensure that the delivery of the service looks and feels just as good and as efficient as the front-end experience. We're also able to utilize the ServiceNow Public Sector Digital Services, or PSDS data model, to intelligently make decisions along those workflows, or even, for a quick start approach, directly use the packaged service delivery workflows and playbooks that come with PSDS as a foundation. So we can use what we already know about the citizen to tailor the service so it's personal to them and guide them on any additional steps that they might naturally take next. And it's easy for those constituents to track the status of their request or submission, even outside of business hours. This all means that you can shift the digital faster and speed up innovation by building atop of a foundation that's tailor-made for the UK public sector. So you can deliver a great constituent experience by being more transparent, you can automate and optimize processes, and maintain a unified view of the constituent and their household while innovating faster and growing your digital services portfolio. And you can do all of this while meeting the accessibility requirements with ease, thanks to being able to directly use the components from the Gov.uk design system and deliver that modern online service experience that we've all come to expect as citizens. So there are, of course, things to think about. It's not just a case of plugging it in. Many services, for example, will need to go through a service assessment. You're responsible for meeting that service standard if it's applicable to your service. This solution does assist with that. We take some of that effort away, but if the service standard does apply, you will still need to book that service assessment with either the Central Digital and Data Office, CDDO, or your departmental assessment team for a self-certification assessment. And as with any new technology adoption, there are some key considerations when transitioning to a new digital platform. So we often focus on the technical aspects, but it's equally important to understand the human and branding elements involved in the journey. The first consideration is people's resistance to change. When organizations transition to a new technology, they often encounter resistance. In the context of GDS and other digital services, this resistance might manifest in people not liking the look and feel of the new platform. Citizens and even employees may have grown accustomed to the previous user interface and experience and used it so frequently that they even consider themselves power users. A sudden change can be disorienting and can be met with pushback. Brand identity is a core element of any organization, including public sector entities. Branding challenges can arise when transitioning to a new technology platform. The GDS look and feel, for instance, might not immediately align with your organization's established branding. And that can create a disconnect between the organization's visual identity and the user interface of the new platform, which can, again, lead to confusion and a sense of inconsistency for users. In addition, organizations might feel that they're losing their unique identity. the fear is that they'll blend into a generic government service, losing that individuality that distinguishes them. Preserving the distinctive characteristics of your organization while adopting new technology is a delicate balance. Addressing the potential loss of identity requires clear communication. It's important to ensure that stakeholders understand adopting new technology doesn't mean erasing the organization's history or individuality. So instead, we look to focus and emphasize the benefits of improved user experience and service quality. And of course, our GDS toolkit and the GovUK front end are based on the concept of a design system. So it's inherently designed to adapt to your organization's unique branding elements and support brand integration strategies to find that harmonious balance that represents both the standard and your individual identity. And so that brings us almost to the end of our main part of the webinar today. And to recap, we heard how UK public sector services can vary significantly in quality and accessibility, oftentimes experiencing delays and high costs. The necessity for change stems from the need to meet growing public expectations and to address inefficiencies in current systems and processes. We heard how owning your digital strategy means taking control of technological advancements to improve service delivery, rather than relying on legacy and outdated methods, and how investing in end-to-end scalable solutions can ensure that services are robust, can handle increased demand, and are cost-effective in the long run. And so before we go to Q&A, just to say, if you'd like to know more about our GDS toolkit, you can, of course, visit our website and download our ebook to get more information. And now I guess we jump into questions.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thanks, Stephen. Stephen, there's a question from Graham. He said, can we see it in action?
Yes, absolutely. If you're interested in seeing it in action, then by all means reach out to us and we can arrange that for you. We'd love to have that conversation.
Thank you, Stephen. Please do send us any more of your question using the chat or the Q&A tab, which you can find at the bottom of your screen. Stephen, Jonathan, does the toolkit only work with PSDS?
So I can field that one. The toolkit is built using base platform capabilities. So it can integrate and extend into the likes of ITSM and CSM. It's not only linked to PSDS.
Thanks, Stephen. Can this toolkit be used for internal use, or is it only for citizen-facing services?
Yes, yeah, of course, you can use the toolkit technically to transform any catalog item that's created in ServiceNow. So that would lend itself to internal use cases as well. Of course, some of the regulatory requirements don't technically apply when it's not a citizen-facing service, but by all means, you can still use that kind of best-in-class interface for those use cases.
Thanks, Stephen. I think I have one more question for you. What do you think is the time and the cost to implement and maintain the app?
Very, very good question. One we often get, and it's very difficult without sounding like I'm sitting on the fence. Very difficult to give you a concrete, it's this long and this cost. It's dependent on many factors. It can range anywhere from 4 weeks to 12 weeks averagely. Don't hold that against me. But it again depends on exactly how you want to use the toolkit. What does your catalog look like? What are the use cases? So it's very much a discussion topic, but we're not talking about months and months and months on end.
Thanks, Jonathan. There's a question in the chat. Do you have a feel for how you'll keep in step with the GDS system design releases, including for existing implementations where Flyform have delivered and perhaps then moved on?
Yeah, it's something that we're considering how we, obviously the GovUK design system is constantly improving through the collaboration that's fostered there. So we're looking at how we can manage that, and we're looking at how we can maintain our library, as you say, for existing customers that may have already implemented it without there being too much disruption. So it's something we're considering. That's definitely on the radar.
Thanks, Stephen. Is there anyone else that have a question for Stephen and Jonathan? So I don't think there's any more question for you, Stephen or Jonathan. Oh, there's another one, sorry. Can you talk about where it's been used so far?
So far, we've piloted within a couple of public sector organizations, but this is very much kind of co-built with ServiceNow. So we're kind of aligning to ServiceNow release processes before we can actively implement and go live. It's something we've tried and tested naturally within our own environments. Pilots have gone very well with other public sector organizations. We don't have approval from them to name them yet, but for those that know who Flyform are or want to know more, we've got plenty of case studies, and it's clear, I think, the people and organizations that we work with online, so it won't take you too much to maybe guess.
Thank you so much. All right, okay. It doesn't seem that we have any more questions. So again, thank you so much for all of you for your time. Jonathan, Stephen, before we end, please do let know where they can contact you, perhaps.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining today. You can see some of the details on screen here, so you can reach out to us at sales@flyform.com. Find us on LinkedIn. We're just Flyform, and visit the website as well.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for attending today, everyone.
Thanks for your time.